In the coaching and consulting world, everyone talks about success, but few talk about what it really takes to get there. I'm Kevin Holly, and today, this is Coaches Unplugged, where we pull back the curtain and have honest conversations with the people shaping the industry. In each episode, you'll hear how top coaches and consultants built their businesses, faced their challenges, and continue to grow both in impact and in mindset. No fluff, no pretense, just real stories, real lessons, and real talk about what it takes to build something that lasts. Today, our guest is the founder and CEO of Advanced Sport Technology. He's a world class mindset and performance coach. He started stocking shoes at Nordstrom at the age of 15, turned a belief that anything is possible into a global career. For over 30 years, he's coached Fortune 500 leaders, NFL players, and elite athletes. He's worked across 5 continents and helped shape Coach Pete Carroll's Win Forever philosophy. Diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic and lung cancer, he was given less than a 1% chance and he beat them both. He's a model of resiliency and strength. Please join me in welcoming Jim Madrid.
Thanks, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be here. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you and your family as well, Jim. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today. And we're very glad to have you and looking forward to the wealth of insight that you'll be sharing with our audience today for sure. Share with our audience a little bit about your role at Advanced Sport and how it fits into the bigger picture there.
Well, I started pretty much out working for a gentleman named Lou Tice of the Pacific Institute in Seattle, Washington in 1990. However, prior to that, Lou was my high school coach and teacher in South End of Seattle. And when we were playing football for him, he introduced us to what was back then new age thinking. Today, it's more about positive psychology, cognitive psychology. Starting out with that at the age of 15, and this gentleman teaching us that, and then to working at Nordstrom, where my mother started working there in 1958, the original downtown Seattle store, hired by Jim Nordstrom. So I had a chance to meet and be mentored by Bruce and Jim Nordstrom, their sons. You know, kind of kind of started out as a personal interest, became a professional passion of mine. And so, I just dug into, I was really interested in the performance side of how the mind works instead of with psychology, nothing wrong with that. But, for the last 60 plus years, it was about what's wrong with us. Well, heck, Kevin, there's something wrong with everybody, right? And so I was really interested in on the high performance people, and that's what Lou got me interested in, and that's what his programs were all about. He was Pete Carroll's coach, mental performance coach, all through the USC days up until 2012 with the Seattle Seahawks, and that's when I was working for Lou when he introduced me to Coach Carroll. And so with that, I just kind of took that on and, built my career around that. I started my own company in 1996, and it was really based on, and that company was a training and development company, basically going for, my process was, if you're going to develop your company, don't you think you need to develop your people first and the 5 inches between their ears? And, it kind of starts there because it's all mental. Everything we do, it's all mental and a mindset as we approach. I have to go to work today, right? Well, you don't have to, but you don't have to pay your rent, you know, or pay your bills either. So my approach has always been a personal development, professional development, and then organizational development. Now, in the early years up to about from 96 to 2005, I'd always get parents come to me and saying, "Hey, do you do this for kids?" Well, I've raised 5 kids and I coach. And I go, "Well, yeah." So we scaled down our adult program called the 10 Principles of Intelligence. And that was typically a 2-day workshop. And we scaled that down to what we called the 7 fundamentals of mental toughness. And, from that age 13, and it goes all the way, up too. So it's, if it's designed for a high school or youth sports, then we stick in a lot of how you're going to use this, this concept today in school, your sport, at home. And so, giving them the mental skills, the life skills that'll take them way beyond the field of sports. So that's kind of how that started. And we started that in 2014, Advanced AST, Advanced Sports Technology. And today that is more doing more work for in conjunction with our nonprofit, the Goodness Beyond Self Foundation, which is serving going into underserved communities where, these kids that have the full potential, where I grew up in a not so nice neighborhood, pretty tough neighborhood in Seattle, that they have that opportunity to think differently, to think beyond their environment and, and that they have a right to success and happiness in the world.
Very interesting background. I must say the fact that your mom knew the founder of Nordstrom personally.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
Pretty good
Very,
place,
very rich history there.
human behavioral expert at Lou Tice and, the people that invented, customer service, the Nordstroms, it's a wonder why I got the business I'm in today.
Exactly. You were born for this, for sure.
I think so. So I've been
Definitely.
told.
Yeah. So Jim, tell us so all that leads up to right now. What does a typical day look like for you today?
Well, today, here's a cheap plug for my newest book, Meatballs and Mindset. I just got back from Seattle. We had a book signing event up on in Seattle on Saturday. I have some players on the Seahawks, so my wife and I got to go to the game on Sunday. It was a little cold, but no rain. It was perfect. We watched, old man Rivers get out there and do his deal. That was impressive. After 5 years sitting not on the bench, but on the couch. And he got
Yeah,
out there and hey, I was pretty proud of him, man. I don't know him or anything, but I was pretty proud of what he showed everybody.
for
And
sure.
then we got home late last night. And then today, followed up in emails, doing this with you, and then getting some books out. This book has touched a lot of people going through cancer diagnosis. And, I get several a day that, will you please, I purchased your book, but can you please send it to this person? And this one gentleman just got diagnosed about 5 days ago with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So today, during the week, that plays a part. I'll talk to my players that played Sunday, because usually that's a day off for them today, and just kind of follow up on what they did really good on Sunday and what they look forward to doing Thursday night, as a matter of fact. And then, I've got players on Alabama, so getting them ready for Friday night's game. Beat Oklahoma, baby. Let's beat Oklahoma.
For sure.
And then the cool thing about that is that they win, Alabama wins, they come out here and play in the Rose Bowl, and I'm pumped about that. I don't have to fly all the way out to Tuscaloosa, but, there's nothing like an Alabama environment, bro, I'll tell you that. So,
I can
that's
tell.
kind of my week, and then we're getting ready to go in the studio to do the book on audio, and we're gonna go into the studio and start doing that. My son Jamie does a lot of my production, and he's kinda like my right arm on everything, so we'll probably do a little video production out here someplace and do some stuff, follow up phone calls and emails, and then a little, mindfulness that I do, just kinda get my brain to slow down a little bit and get ready for Thursday night's Seahawk, Rams game.
That's awesome. So you have it, it's interesting that, the most successful people always have their, not just their day planned out, but their week, and in some cases, even their month planned out in advance because, kind of goes back to the old saying, people they don't, they don't plan to fail, they fail to plan, right?
Right.
So it's very
Exactly.
important, as you outlined, how critical it is to have a plan. And my next question typically would be regarding a key turning point in your life or in your career, but you've already eloquently stated how beating two life-threatening diseases in your own personal life helped shape you into who you are today.
No
Can you talk
surgery.
about a little bit about how you were able to navigate those personal health challenges and still come out on top, if you will?
So, Kevin, thank you for that question because I think that's why I'm here today. You know, um, is to help people no matter what kind of challenges. You know, we're all going to have them. There's not any of us that are getting through this life with an easy road. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have roadblocks. And, this one lady that texted me this morning to send a book to a gentleman that's got cancer, it's like it's so amazing that how your life can turn in an instant. And I have great faith also, and so I I've been very blessed in my life, and in blessed in the point of, these challenges that I've had, people embezzle me. I've been sued for, $1,000,000, just a frivolous suit. I've been married before and, that was tough going through all that. And, I just think that that was just kind of like preparing me for what I think the good Lord has me doing today. And when I touch people's lives, I know when I was first diagnosed, my father had passed away in 2008 of stage 4 pancreatic cancer. His younger brother in 2006 died of pancreatic cancer. And all I thought was in April 1st, no joke, when the doctor came in and said, it's stage 4 pancreatic cancer, my wife was next to me. And it was the very first thing that went through my head, Kevin, was, well, that was back in 2008, and they've made a lot of advancements since then. The nurse came in afterwards. This is amazing. The nurse came in looking at my chart and she said out loud, she thought this out loud, wow, I've never seen anybody with this much cancer in. My wife kind of wanted to, rip her face off. And I said, wait. And at that moment, I said, watch what I do with this. Just watch what I do with this. And I had a choice, Kevin. And I think that if there's a message there is that every day we make choices. And my choice was, do I take this as a death sentence or an opportunity to triumph? In our world today, it's pretty, cynicism is kind of the word I look at today. People with positivity are looked like freaks. People with faith are looked like there's something wrong with you. Well, I'm here to tell you, given a less than 1%, chance that, it has a lot to do with it. And if I think that, looking at that was, my choice is either take it as a death sentence or an opportunity to triumph. And obviously I've said, hey, I'm going to take it as an opportunity to triumph. And so far, it's working. Yes, I had faith in my God. I had faith in my wife and my family, the support. And my wife said, well, we have 5 children, and my wife called the kids. I had them on the speakerphone, and she told them, what was going on. And my daughter, I have 4 boys and a daughter, and she was 25 at the time. My youngest was 22 at the time. And she cried out, oh no. And, my wife said, today's about crying. Tomorrow we go to work to support your father. So when you're in a crisis, do you have that good support system? Post COVID, that, isolationism is still the scar tissue that we see from that isolationism. Post COVID, female teenage suicide's gone up 42%. Um,
Mhm.
Social media has just gone wild and, you can read all about it. In fact, I work with a high school team, several teams. It's kind of my lab. And I've got girls basketball, boys soccer, boys water polo. And, we ask them to give up social media during the season. And they see the benefits of that. I mean, last year, our soccer team, we're just getting started right now. Our soccer team was number 1 in the nation. Um,
Wow.
Number 1 high school soccer team in the nation, max preps, and we scored 72 goals and only allowed 10. Had we not put in
That's
our
insane.
3rd string, the reporters said, "You guys would have probably scored over 80 points and only allowed 3." So, that's the 2nd time in 3 years we've been national champions. But, it's
Awesome.
all of yeah, it's culture too, Kev, right? It's all about culture.
Sure.
Well, going back to that, then, my wife ended the conversation that day with, all this is gonna do for us is give us stronger legs for bigger strides. And isn't that the truth, right? I got home a couple days later, and on the front door of our house, coming in any entrance into our house, my wife had posted up signs saying, "Positive talk only beyond this door." They had poster boards in here, pictures of me. I coached with the Seattle Sounders for 4 years with Ziggy Schmid, and they had pictures of me, and it said "Good vibes only." And after this weekend, and after we saw what happened in Australia, what we happen at Brown University, and what we're seeing here in Southern California, catching those 7 people or 5 people that had intent to create havoc on New Year's Eve. I posted up today on social media about, why don't we just, for the month of December, stop the negativity on social media? Post something positive, something uplifting, something inspiring. And I wonder what would happen if we all did that, right? And don't respond to something. And if somebody does, don't respond with it with a positive, vibe to it. Let's see what happens. And through that, you know, that's what surrounded me was all of that. And so you asked me what got me through was that, my mindset from my father was the most optimistic person I've ever met. I remember 6, 7 years old and my father saying, anything is possible. And my mother would add, as long as you work your butt off, so
Hmm.
anything. And I've had that mindset, and then meeting Lou Tice and then meeting, the Nordstrom brothers and just having that kind of around me. I often get, that's why I named the book Meatballs and Mindset. I'm half Italian, half Spanish, grew up mainly on the Italian side, the Zagata side. And, growing up in the kitchen, watching my mother, grandmothers make and aunts and making, Sunday sauce and Sunday dinners and family and love and spread the joy. And hey, Kevin, if you're ever in town, come stay with us. Don't stay in a hotel. My wife is finally getting used to that after 30 years. So, and so, I was talking about culture and the culture that I grew up in, the culture that I've been surrounded, the culture that I try and instill in other organizations and teams is that, hey, it's inclusive, right? Bring them in. Let's go, man. And the culture of common sense, Kevin, the culture
For
of
sure.
common sense. And man, not a culture of ego, not the culture of let me one up you. It isn't all about me. It's all about us. And, how can I be, I want to be in those cultures it's a culture of contribution, how we're all, they say the number one thing that motivates us at work, that inspires us at work is, being part of something bigger than ourselves. And when Aristotle talked about 4 levels of happiness, level 1 was instant gratification, right?
Mm,
Has nothing to do with the greater good, only has to do with me. I had my latte this morning, had nothing to do with you, had nothing to do with my wife, my grandkids, my kid, had nothing to do with anybody else. It was only about me. But after that first cup, I wasn't, the second cup, I didn't want one. It wouldn't make me as happy as that first sip. So it doesn't last
right.
very long. And it only has to do with us. Level 2, by the way, he called that latus. And level 2 is about, ego and achievement. Hey, it's good. I got an ego. You got an ego, but let's keep it in check. And I'm not out to do, if we were on a golf course, yeah. And if we were playing basketball, I don't care how big you are. I'm 5'2". I'm 5'6". So, I bet you're a little bit taller than me. But I'm going to work. I'm going to work,
Yeah.
and we're going to trash talk positively. We're going to trash talk each other. And so that's fun. We all know level 2 managers and leaders. Just listen to me, Kevin. If you just listen to me, you might be as good as me. I don't know. I kind of doubt it, but I'm going to give you some education. Maybe you'll be as smart as me. When we know that it's my way or the highway. It's all about me. Has nothing to do with the greater good. And both level 1 and level 2 is all about self and it's temporal. Has nothing to do with it doesn't last very long, has nothing to do with the greater good. Level 3, and by the way, he called that Felix. Level 2, Felix, like the cat. Level 3,
Mhm.
he called Beatitudo, to do good beyond self. Now, to contribute, and we can look at all the different professions that, let's take a car salesperson. Is he out for a transaction or transformation? And those transactional ones usually have some sort of, you know, false identity tied to it, right? Something weird, I'm just trying to get over on you. I'm trying to just squeeze you into that car, but I'm not listening to you, Kevin. All I see is a dollar bill, right? But if I see that, man, Kevin, I want you to have this car. I want you to love this car. I want you to want this car because I want your business for the rest of your life. Every time you want a car, Kev, you're going to come back and see me, right? That's the Nordstrom way. That's those 20%, Nordstrom today has an 80% turnover rate in the sales department, over 80. But who's that 20%? Those are the all-stars. Those are the people that are you come in, you buy a shirt, a sport coat or something, they take your name, address, size, your birth date, and all that stuff. And they're, hey, Kevin, we got a black sweater in. I know you're going to like, because that one you had the other day, but this one's not just a V-neck, it's a crew neck. And dude, you're going to like that. Should I save you one? You go, thanks, Jim. Duh. And so the goodness beyond self is those doctors that treated me at City of Hope. They're a level 3 organization. The nurses there, the people I've had radiation. I've had a total of 15 days of radiation over that year and a half. I had it in August of 2022. 5 days I had the cancer had spread to my sacrum. I had 5 days of that. And then a year later, in July of 2023, I had 2.5 centimeters in my left lobe, and I had 10 days of radiation there. And let me tell you something. I had no scars, no burns, no nothing. The toughest part about getting that treatment there at City of Hope was putting on the rope. And that was about it.
Mm,
But again, you know, the biology of belief too. Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza. That's science. The way you think truly has a lot to do with your performance, the way you
yeah.
think. Okay. That's my long-winded question. I forget hell I asked me, Kevin.
No, trust me, this is gold. This is honestly gold. Just
Thank you.
listening to you speak freely, and by all means, feel free to continue if you'd like, but definitely great, great story. I mean, it's just mind boggling, especially for someone, for those that are familiar with the type of diagnosis that you had, there obviously is a very, very low survival rate. And the fact that you were able to navigate that, and you talked about having a great faith, and you talked about having a strong support system around you, and how critical those things were in assisting you throughout the process and overcoming it, which is awesome. So thank you for sharing that personal story.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
For
Well,
sure.
I just go back to, and I just want to really make a point of, do and this is to coaches out there. Do you have the strong self-esteem, if you will, and the authority with your clients to talk about that positive environment, you know, about positive self-talk? I look at my clients, whether it be teams or corporations. Do you have the guts to stick up in front of everybody, positive talk only? Or some people are going to say, oh, that positive stuff. Well, I'm a certified practitioner of positive psychology out of University of Pennsylvania under Martin Seligman. You want to learn about positive psychology? Go to the guy that kind of started it all, Dr. Martin Seligman out of University of Pennsylvania. Get his book, Learned Optimism. I put that out, I think, late 80s. And the research, evidence-based research, science, that how positive, whether you're a pessimist or optimist, and what the performance is going to be. Look up Dr. Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief. The placebo effect. I mean, come on. It doesn't get any better than that. I've got a headache. I take this pill. I tell you've got the same kind of headache, and you're one of my best friends. You go, give me that pill. And they give you a sugar pill, and you go, by God, Jim, that thing did work. I got no, and they gave you a sugar pill. Come on. I mean, that I leaned right into that.
Yeah.
When I was first diagnosed and got home, I did 30 minutes of mindfulness in the morning, 30 minutes at night. And I would visualize, start it with prayer, and then visualize. I saw that tumor in my pancreas. The blood count out of my pancreas, anything over 3,700, you've got cancer of the pancreas. Kevin, mine was 40,000 plus. Anybody want to see the results? I'm
Gotcha.
happy to show them, right? And within about 45 days, that tumor had been shrunk to over 50%. No chemo, no nothing, no
Wow.
medication. I was waiting to get chemo, and I was like saying, "Hey, when do I get it? Let's get it on." And
Right.
On a Friday morning, my scheduling called me from City of Hope, and they scheduled me the following week to start. Come on in, get a port, and we're going to start 7 weeks of chemo. Hour later, my oncologist called and said, "I've got some news for you." Got my wife on the phone, and he was scratching his head, going, "Yeah, you don't need chemotherapy." And I went, "Wait, what?" And he goes, "No, you don't need chemotherapy. In fact, it's now non-small cell lung cancer." And we both went, "Wait, what?" My wife asked, "How did you misdiagnose?" By the way, it's a total of 5 oncologists I've seen. So,
Right.
you know,
Wow. Oh my gosh.
and they all pointed me back to City of Hope, right? And he goes, "Nobody misdiagnosed you. Nobody did. UCI Medical, Saddleback Memorial Care, and City of Hope. 3 different, biopsies and everything. That's what it came out. Same thing. 40,000 plus. So I immediately, and my message to a lot of people that are going through this, I got to tell you that yes, people are going to send you everything. They are going to tell you what to take, what program. This will cure cancer. This will do all that. And God bless them, they're only trying to help you. You have to be the person that says, "I believe in this. I have faith in this." Okay. And so anybody that calls me and talks, I say, "This is what I did." Any of that sounds interesting to you, then I'm happy to go deeper with you. So I immediately visualize, soccer players, right, Kev? Pro players, right? They flop, they go to the ground. You think the guy just busted his leg, right? And the trainers run out there, they're shh, that special spray, boom, the guy's up and he's brand new, right? And you think he's about ready to die, the way he flopped.
Right.
I would visualize and I would call that that air and that oxygen coming in my nose, celestial air, healing air. And it would go right into my pancreas and it would destroy and start breaking apart that mass. And then I would exhale black smoke out of my mouth because that's the image I had. It was that it was completely black. And so that was the image I had, and that's all I did. I did not need to know the cellular makeup of that was for me. I didn't need that. I read some books earlier on years ago, Dr. Bernie Siegel about, how people survive cancer and how they, visualize and they're, and again, you take all that into when people ask me, how did I, get to where I am today? It's all of that. It takes a village, and it took City of Hope. I call them my village. It took all that, whether it MD Anderson in Houston or, the Mayo Clinic or wherever, Fred Hutchinson up in Seattle. You've got to believe in them. If you don't, if you've got doubt, doubt brings on hesitation, and hesitation brings on failure. So it takes everything. It takes that village around you, that good, and it takes energy. My daughter had crystals all over the house here, and heck, I'm in. I'm in. There's a few things people send me. I go, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. But God bless them. Um, that's pretty much how I got to that. And then writing the book, I started to write a book called "It's All About Mindset." Um, before I got sick. And then when I got sick, I kind of, I was journaling and then it hit me that I was talking all about my mindset and people were asking me, how was your mindset? And then, it's like some people like you did, how did you come up with that mindset? Well, it took time and it grew. And then about 10 months ago, a good friend of mine, my wife and I have a beautiful restaurant nearby. Sitting there one day, I'm having a glass of wine, and him and I were talking about culture and our Italian culture. And then I got home that night, combining what my mindset was with the book. It's all about mindset based on programs that I've written. And off my first book, Get Over It and Get On With It, I was kind of culminating all that together. And then I swear to God, I woke up at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning going, that's it. I'm going to put my Italian to make it kind of catchy, my Italian upbringing and cook. I love cooking. My wife does all the cleaning. So, and how, it was like, who's spending the night tonight? Like I said earlier, it's like, okay, it's all good. And then About 3 days later, I came up with the, title, Meatballs and Mindset: Recipes for a Positive Life. Now, as I was writing the book, I was gonna put some of our recipes and other people's recipes in it, but it kinda broke up, after each chapter, it kinda broke up the thought, flow. So I put a QR code in it and sent it to our website, meatballsandmindset.com, and there's gonna be recipes up on that, and we're still building that site. And, there's a lot of other stuff that's on there. It's a fun book. It's been received really well. We're going to have we've had 2 book signings that were, unbelievably successful. I've got one I'll
Awesome.
be putting in New York, actually in Brooklyn, and then I've got another one, we're planning in Washington, DC, and then in, Miami, Orlando, in Houston, and Dallas. So we're kinda
Wow.
having with it, yeah.
Sounds really big for sure. And congratulations on the new book, by the way.
Thank you very much. It's a fun
Definitely.
book. It's a fun book, yeah.
And will it be on Amazon or
Yeah, it
where can
will
our
be.
listeners find
Yeah,
it
they it
quickly?
will be. We've got, the right now where they can order it before it goes on Amazon. Right now, they can go to meatballsandmindset.com and they can order it there. And if there's a special request, they can send me a message via the website too, to if they want it signed to somebody or if they want it signed, I'm more than happy to do that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So
But
you talk a lot about
we're gonna do it on audio, the book on audio, and get ready to go in the studio probably right after Christmas. But I'm gonna do it a different way, Kevin. So let's say if I was, during that chapter, I mentioned your name, right? And, Kevin Holly, blah, blah, blah. Him and I met, years ago and we did this together, blah, blah, blah. And he used it as an example of the content of the concept I'm teaching in that. Then I would say and I'd read the chapter just like you would on any audiobook. And then I would, at the end of the chapter, I'm going to add a conversation like you and I are having right now, a quick little 10-minute conversation, and then bring it personalized to the audiobook itself, bringing life to the book, if you will.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah, it's going to be
It sounds
fun.
like quite the creative approach to mindset, in which obviously mindset is our greatest competitive edge.
That's
So
right.
I'm that's sounds like it's going to really be in depth talking about, and the analogy of meatballs is genius. So
Thank
that's
you.
great. That's great. Jim,
Thank you.
how do you define success now compared to when you first began? Because obviously you have a lot of experience and you've been through a lot of different turning points in your life. How do you define success today compared to years ago when you first got started in the industry?
You know, First get started in the industry, you know, uh, you got a vision, obviously, of what you want to create, you know, and it pretty much surrounded by the dollar sign, right? The dollar sign meaning not just that, you're going to be putting money in your pocket is to build your business, that you can reinvest it and reinvest it and reinvest it, right? And that's been the deal. How I define that today is I think if anything, it's the good that our work is doing, has done, and is doing. And the cards and letters that I get, the emails that I get, the text messages I get via social media. Some people I don't even remember their names. They were in a workshop, 10, 20 years ago. The other day I got a couple that said we teach about writing affirmations and carrying them with them. And they showed me their affirmations that they have for their kids that are right next to their bed on the wall, that they read them every night before they go to bed. And one lady told me, she goes, I had my affirmations on sticky notes in my car. My car detailers were reading them and they loved them. They were copying them. Okay, cool. I think that's I think it back then it was transactional, today it's transformational. And that's how I would define success.
That's deep. Transactional versus transformational. That speaks volumes to what drives all of us and whatever
Mm,
we choose to do in our lives, right? It's all about who we can help, who we can impact. So that's very well stated.
thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the pain points that you're noticing just overall in the coaching and consulting industry now. What challenges would you say are coaches and consultants facing these days? Maybe
You
even
know,
in your own business.
yeah, I think that from a marketing point of view, a brand point of view, or perspective is that, yeah, I heard that before. One thing and nothing bad, but I'm not a motivational speaker. I can't motivate you. I'm more educational. And if I could give you the education to motivate yourself, that's fine. But I'm not a motivational speaker. Jim Rohn was a great motivational speaker. We can go on, about motivational speakers. Yes, I can get up there and have a lot of fun and do the rah, rah, rah thing, but I'm going to leave you with some good content. I'm going to leave you with some actionable items too, move forward. I think the biggest thing is how do you maintain that momentum that you built with your clients? And I think that's the biggest challenge. And that's one of the things I really worked on is giving that long-term content, given elasticity so that, they're using it. I think the research in the past was, um, motivational speakers selling their, CDs and books and all that stuff. And what percent actually break the cellophane when they get it home? It was a very low percent that actually broke the cellophane, right? So I thought about that, and I thought that was, yeah, being called a motivational speaker, it kind of puts that tag on you. So I think the biggest challenge is how can you stand out from everybody else? When you look at, you know, coaching programs, hey, become a coach, all that. I think you have to go into it and look at how are you going to brand yourself to stand out, right? I never went to college, Kevin.
Hmm.
And I'm self-taught. I was talking to a sports psychologist once and interviewing her for, program at one of the colleges I was working at. And she was like, well, how do you people charge that amount? You people? I go, because I got over 30 years of results. And I'm not going to sit here and say, I've got the degree of hard knocks. College is hard knocks. In most cases, I was making money. So I didn't have any hard knocks. Excuse me. So I look at that as like, um, you know, I've got results. And I think that's the thing that you have to look at. But again, it's your intent, what your approach is. I think when you're looking at your brand and you're looking at what your intent is, if your intent is going in to make money, um, you're going to make that. It's not going to last very long. But if your intent is to make a difference, a positive impact on the organization or your client. And if that's your goal, it's like, Kevin, I would listen to you and say, okay, what kind of goals are you looking at? What's your vision? But I also ask this question. If you told me what your vision was for 2026, and the way sometimes I like to help people create that vision is ask them this question. Here we are, December 16th, and it's a year from today, Kevin. And I'm going to ask you this question a year from today. We're sitting here talking and we're together, we're face to face. And I said to you, Kevin, over the last 12 months, what are you so very proud of that you achieved, that you accomplished? And that could be spirituality, that could be in your relationships, that could be in your health, that could be in your career, that could be in your finance, that can be in your community, that can be in a lot of different things, right? But that's what we have to look at. I think some people just point, this is where I want my business to be, but they forget about all the rest of this over here. And that's life, baby. That's life over there. And that stuff there is going to pull away from this, right? So you have to be balanced in all that. So I think that, what happens is that we don't think about this over here, covering your base while you're getting your business started is covering your base so that, you got a little balance. And by the way, nobody will ever have a completely balanced life anyways, but so you've got to have that balance and be able to be consistent in all these other areas to be consistent here. If you're not healthy, it's going to be tough. Look, I go back to when I was first diagnosed. I did not
Yeah.
ever, ever talk about my goal being cancer free. My goal,
Mm,
healthy again. Cancer was in the way.
mm,
Big difference. Okay. And then once I was cancer free, the thought was whether I was going to get cancer again. It was, how do I prevent it from coming back?
right.
It's that health pattern, right? Well, it's the same thing in our business, right? It's the same thing. What's that, right? So if again, let's say you came to me next week and you had that vision statement, right? That vision, and your statement isn't just written out. You just know what you're going to do in your business, in your personal life, in your health, in your career. And you're going, Jim, this is what I did. This is what I was so proud of. That is what I would be so very proud of. Then I would ask you these three questions, Kevin. So what, Kevin, if you achieve that? Who cares, Kevin, if you achieve that? And what difference would it make if you did? And when you
Mm.
answer those questions and you put some thought behind those questions, then you get to purpose, not my why. Why is is transactional. Purpose is transformational. Why is transactional. This is my why because I got to pay the bill. That's my why, right? And nothing wrong with that. But purpose drives vision. Vision drives performance. Reason why people don't achieve their goals, there's no significance. There's no purpose to it. Yeah, I want to drive a Porsche, right? I really don't. But let's say, right? You've heard people say, I want to buy that. And they've got,
For sure.
no purpose behind it, really. They can be living in a terrible place, but I'm driving a Porsche, baby, or want to. But it's like lip service. You know that people are giving you lip service. The worst thing is,
Absolutely.
do they know that they're giving lip service to themselves? I got this. Really? How? How do you got this? Prove to me. Show me where you've got this. When I work with when I work with athletes, and especially young athletes, and I wish a lot of parents would do this, whether it be grades or performance on the field, a kid gets a goal. Yeah, congratulations. But you know what I'm very proud of you? How hard you worked, the grind that you did to get to be able to score that goal. Yeah,
That's
good
what it comes
grade.
down to.
Yeah, great grades. Love those grades. Well done. But you know why you got those grades? Is that's what I was very proud of you, is how hard you worked, your commitment, your focus, how steadfast you were to working. That's what your work ethic is what got you that grade. And what
So
we
very
do is
true.
cheer them for the goal. Way to go. I'm so proud of you that you got the goal, which is good. Man, add the other part to it. Recognize that.
That's the what we see is only the end result, right? It's
Right.
all the pre-work that goes unnoticed much of the time. That's so true. What's working well for you right now overall with AST and what's been the most frustrating?
I tell you, what's working really well is, Madrid Partners is basically my main company. Mm, And that's, the sports ever since the, 2022 diagnosis, the sports has been, I've got players on that were playing. I had a player that was played 4 years with the Eagles, a year with Tennessee, a year with Green Bay last year, got signed to San Francisco this year, got injured, is out for the season. I got a players on Alabama. That's working well. I think, and what's working is my reputation, I guess. Right up to 3 weeks ago, I get a phone call from Kitsap County, which is out across, Puget Sound from Seattle, west of Seattle, and, soccer program, club soccer out there, and I get a phone call from an email from this mom, and her son is 15, 16 years old, and, you know, I've to me, that's where it makes the impact is, our youth. These kids down here at the high school that I work at, and other high schools that I have, colleges that I work at. Hey, through the window of sports, I can give, of AST, through the window of sports, I can give them these life skills, these mental skills that will be with them for the rest of their life. And, again, setbacks are gonna happen, who saw the pandemic coming? Who saw the, financial collapse of 2008, you know? 2008, I had an office in Madrid, Spain, was there for 8 years, with the Santander. We were doing good there. I had an office here with 20 people in Mission Viejo, beautiful office. My clients were finance, mortgage, finance, real estate, automotive. Poof, all 3 of those industries went slamming down, right? And
Yeah.
kinda closed everything down, but it was like, "All right, gotta start all over again." Yeah, and you do. And then, the sports thing kinda took off, Oakley came around. I had fun with Oakley for about 8 years, the corporation. Their headquarters happens to be about 15 miles from my house, but I got to travel around. I got to go to South America with them and Europe with them, Australia with them, and so, and that they opened up the door to other sports. I was just working with their sales agents, and then from there, kinda I got to meet I was in Brazil at a, Red Bull Oakley surfing event in Rio, and one of the guys, sitting in one of my classes and stuff and heard what I was doing. About 3 days later, he comes to me and said, "Hey, there's a family down in Sao Paulo down that they would like to meet you. Their son plays soccer." I said, "Okay." They said, "Well, they'd like you to come down and they'll pay for your trip down." I went, "Okay." This is 2011. And so okay. I didn't even ask how old he was or anything. I would get all that later. We get into Sao Paulo, we check in, and then the next morning, the next day, we're gonna go to his match in down south. And so that's when I said, "Well, who does he play for?" And they said, "Santos." Santos, that's a professional team there. It was Pele's team. And I go, "Santos?" I go, "Who's the player?" And they went, "Neymar." I went, "Neymar? One of the top players in the world." And Barcelona's trying to get him, Real Madrid's trying to get him, and I ended up spending some time with him, and that was fun. So, those, I call them, some people say that's very serendipitous. I call them God winks. It's like God
Mm,
was right behind just going, "Gotcha, Jim. We got you, Jim," you know? And
for
so
sure.
that kind of put a nice little, on the credibility, belt. That kinda added a little bit there, so that was pretty cool. Those kind of things, y y you gotta have the commitment, and, it's that grit, determination, perseverance, excuse me. It's that, Dr. Angela Duckworth, hey, read the book Grit, you know?
Mhm.
She's awesome. She's awesome, and, that the passion, determination, and, that perseverance, and, I guess I've got grit written all over my face, so and I try and I got that book for all my kids. I tell other kids to read that book, but that's what it takes, and yeah, you're gonna have your excuse my language, you're gonna have your ass handed to you, alright? Be ready for that.
Sure.
If you're a coach, that's what you coach other people to do. So you
Yep.
better be able to do it yourself, right? And I guess,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm a living testament to what I've been coaching for the last, uh, 10 years, 30 years plus, almost 40
Yeah.
years now. So
That's awesome. Jim, what's next? What's next? What do you what's the goal for the over the next 6 to 12 months? I know that you have the audiobook coming out soon after the holiday. What does 2026 look like?
my next book, I already got it. I already got no 5 more books ready to go. Not ready
Oh,
to
wow.
go. They're in the thought process. I've got 10 already on, a book. Again, it's, I've got that. I already got it copyrighted and everything else. It's just the way it's gonna be colored and looked, and that's what I'm working with. You'll know what I'm talking about, and that is Mindset for Dummies. If Jim Madrid can beat cancer, you can find your damn car keys. That's my next one. So and
That's good.
yeah, and so those are the kind of books I'm working on now, and then I got a series coming out that we're gonna be working on, smaller books, nothing as big as, this one here was Started out, it was just gonna be like 10 chapters. It was 20, ended up being 20 chapters. But it's written, and I love that, was it's like the conversation we're having right now. That's how you're gonna find this book. It's like conversation piece. And it also is, you could you could go like this and stop and go, life rarely goes in a straight line. There are potholes, detours, speed bumps, unexpected traffic, and sometimes the road just disappears for a while. That doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're learning. I mean, you could do that in any part of this book and you're going to get a message. So it's kind of the way I like to write. Little, little different, little, non-traditional ways, but that's been my life too. I've approached everything kind of like hmm, in a kind of a non-traditional way. So
No
that's kind
traditional
of what I've,
approach, and it's
yeah.
served you well, clearly.
Yeah, and I've got, and by the way, also, my daughter, lives in Australia, and so, any of you people out there in Australia need to hire a guy like me. I'm coming, okay? She's getting married there in, 2027. So, I'm kinda building up
Awesome.
to that, to that for her wedding, and then my youngest son, he's getting married in September of 2027. So the 3 older boys are all good, and now the 2 younger ones are, the ones, and then I think 2028, releasing a couple more books. In 2028, I think my wife and I are gonna do a little traveling. I think we've earned that.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Travel
So
just for leisure, not for
just
work.
for leisure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but I just
awesome.
wanna go to Italy, find a little village someplace in Tuscany or wherever, and stay there for 3 months and get up in the morning and go have a little espresso with all the local guys
Yeah.
and, have a blast and just kinda relax.
Sounds like the perfect goal for sure. For sure.
Gotta enjoy it.
So Jim, yeah. So you talk about, obviously you have another book coming out, beyond meatballs and mindset. You have another book coming out, and you're working on a few other different things right now as well, which is awesome. If you had a magic wand, right, to fix just one thing in your business that may be either holding you back or slowing you down, Jim, what would you say that one thing would be right now?
I think for me, and I'll be quite honest, organizationally, you know, I'm all over the place, okay? You see my desk, but I know where it's all at. I know where it's all where it is. I think if one thing I could get better is organizationally. I have another lady. Her name happens to be Darcy, also like my wife, and Darcy Lyons, and she's been with me for about 11 years now. She lives in Texas, and I wish that she lived closer. And she's amazing, and I need about 2 more Darcys. Uh, and that would be that. So, get your life together, Jim. So that's that's my message all to me every morning. It's like, come on, man. So,
For
and
sure.
then
I
like,
mean, with all the
yeah, and let go. I think too, letting go. Facilitators come, and I think one of the things I'm really challenged with is, how do I help coach others in the same kind of messaging? I don't want them to be me, but I want them to be, authentic, true to themselves, and no fear. I mean, I say things and, it's me. I don't beat myself up over it. Well, not for very long. I mean, I've put my foot in my mouth many times,
same.
but, I can apologize for it and move on. But I think that, it's kind of like, letting go a little bit. And I think that's something I need to work on. And patience, lots and lots of patience. I turned 70th in January. And I
Wow,
just
you
keep
don't look
going,
like it.
"Wow." Yeah, thank you, and I don't think like it, it's
Yeah,
obvious. But I my wife and I, we trip and we just go, "You're gonna be 73?" I go, "Yeah," you know?
that's awesome. Well, for the sake of time, Jim, it's been a pleasure. I do want to allow you to have any last word of advice or insight that you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up here.
Be happy, share happiness, be, part of the solution, not part of the problem. Make it simple. Don't make it complex. In the coaching business, don't make it clinical. Make it practical. And if you make it practical, it's easier for people to understand. No, it's not about you. It's about them. And look, that was the thing with me. It's like, I need you to see how cool I am. And, it isn't about any of that. It's about, authenticity and being true to yourself and knowing that the focus is on what I can contribute to you being a better human being, a better athlete, a better coworker, a better leader, whatever it may be. Listen, 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 and listen more.
Awesome. Very, very well stated. Thank you so much for that, Jim, and for sharing so much of your personal story, your company history, and your business acumen with our audience today. It's been a pleasure, and we do once again thank you for sharing so openly and honestly. It's been great. And to our audience, thank you all for listening as well, and for being a part of a conversation that is redefining what it means to grow, lead, and create impact. If today's episode resonated, please share it, follow along, and keep the energy moving forward. Because the future of coaching and consulting, it isn't written by chance, it's written by those willing to evolve. I'm Kevin Holly once again, and until next time, keep building something extraordinary.